The 2006 Honda Ridgeline is this week's victim. Timing belt replacement was going on with this. What was going on with this Honda?
So the vehicle came to our shop for a routine timing belt replacement. It had about, I believe, 180,000 kilometers, 110,000 miles, something like that. The vehicle is due for its timing belt replacement. Never been done before. It's a 2006, so actually about 12, 13-year-old vehicle. So it definitely had a good use in the timing belt, and we replaced it.
So what's involved in replacing the timing belt on this vehicle?
Well, it's actually it's a pretty decent timing belt service as far as those go. You know, it is a transverse mounted V6 like all Honda type engines are. They sit sideways in the engine compartment, which can be annoying, but actually this one's nicely built and readily accessible. I mean to get to the timing belt cover, there's a few accessory items that need to be removed, like the power steering pump and the accessory belt, and then after that it covers off, and the timing belt's right in there to be replaced.
Besides the belt, what other parts do you replace on this 3.5 liter V6?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, I mean, often when you look at a maintenance schedule, it says replace timing belt. It doesn't tell you about all the other things. Well, actually, on Honda, it does say inspect water pump. So they're a little further ahead of the game. But we like to do a thorough service on these. I mean, as I said, this car is 13 years old. It's got 180,000 kilometers. There's other items that are going to be worn out or soon to wear out on the vehicle if they're not replaced. So doing a thorough timing belt job is really critical. You know, back in the olden days when timing belts would last only maybe 70 or 90,000 kilometers, sometimes you get away with things like the tensioners, leaving them because they'll probably wear out by the second belt. But nowadays they last so long, everything tends to wear out. So let's just look at some pictures. So there's our, this is not our Ridgeline, but this is a 2006 Honda Ridgeline, a sort of, I like to call it a sort of pickup truck. There's a view of the timing belt area. This is with the original belt on, so this is with the covers removed. The power steering pump normally sits right in this area. It's been removed as well. And you can see, here's the belt. That's the crankshaft pulley, idler pulley, and the belt. I'm just kind of rooting it around with the mouse here, goes past the tensioner and down back to the crankshaft. This is the water pump located in here. So this pulley, again, these pulleys are all driven by the water pump, or sorry, by the timing belt, and we replace all of them because, you know, they're all of the same age, they're all worn the same amount, and while there was nothing actually really wrong with any of them at the moment, who knows when any of these parts is going to fail. And if they do, it's going to take the belt out with it and kind of defeats the whole purpose of replacing the timing belt. In addition, behind the timing belt, there are oil seals. There's an oil seal behind each camshaft pulley. So we remove the pulleys and we replace these seals, and the crankshaft pulley comes off and we replace the seal back there. Again, these seals get hard with age. They start to leak. On this car, actually, they weren't leaking yet, but the seals were starting to get pretty hard. So leakage is not far down the road. And it's not a lot of extra work while you have everything apart. And let's just look at a couple other pictures. So there is another view of the timing belt looking straight down. Again, you can see the water pump. These marks my technician put on just to reference marks so you can see where the pulleys line up. Lining up a timing belt is very critical. If any of these is one tooth off, the engine will not run properly. And if it's way off, the pistons and valves can collide and destroy your engine. So, of course, you got to do it properly. It's critical. Now, here's a good overview of all the parts we replaced. So these are all the old pieces. So there's the timing belt. This is the tensioner pulley assembly. And this is the hydraulic tensioner. This piece actually forces the belt and keeps it tight. And it's oil filled, so it keeps it at a constant tension. You know, it used to be in the olden days, well, I don't know how far back the olden days are, but I just go, before they had this technology is what I consider the olden days. The timing belt, you'd adjust it with to a certain tension and you'd leave it. But what would happen is by the time, maybe 50,000 to 60,000 miles, 100,000 Ks, near the end of the belt's life, the belt would have stretched a little bit, and there's often a lot of play. So this tensioner completely eliminates that. So you never get excessive play in the belt throughout the whole life, unless this part fails, and they do, and that can cause some issues in and of itself. There's the water pump, and these are the oil seals, the camshafts, 2 camshaft seals, and the crankshaft seal. So there's a full overview of all the parts we replaced.
So what's the replacement interval on this Ridgeline?
So Honda uses they have the indicator maintenance light on the dash, and the light will come on saying it needs an A or a B service, and they have a bunch of numbers. So they only give a specific mileage interval under a very extreme use condition, which I'll talk about in a sec. But if your warning with a number 4 comes on, like an A or a B4, that's when the timing belt needs to be replaced, along with they recommend spark plugs and a valve adjustment. So what that actual mileage interval is, I don't really know. And to be honest, I'm not sure if that was actually on this vehicle or not. The owner of this vehicle does a lot of his own service, but he wanted us to do the timing belt for him. So I will say that at 180,000 kilometers, I did look at the belt pretty closely, and it actually looks to be in good shape. So I don't like to ever recommend to people, and please don't take this as a recommendation, oh, you can go a lot longer. The answer is yes, this could have lasted longer, but we would have never known had we taken it apart. It could have been on the verge of breaking, and it is 13 years old, so it is rubber. But generally, as I said, visually and physically, it seemed to be in pretty good shape. You know, that being said, we did have a Jeep Liberty diesel a few weeks back. The owner had not changed the timing belt, hit about 200 Ks. The belt skipped teeth, destroyed the engine, and you know, the amount of money that cost to fix is just, it's not worth it. So had he replaced it a little sooner, it would have been good. So you never know how long your timing belt's going to last. It's best to replace it. And if that warning comes on the dash, do it. Now, I'm just looking away at my screen here because there is one other thing Honda recommends for replacing the belt. And that is, there is a time interval. If the vehicle is regularly driven at temperatures over 110 degrees Fahrenheit, or under minus 20 degrees Fahrenheit, or towing a trailer. So those are pretty specific conditions. I don't know where if you live in the Mojave Desert or something, or Northern Canada, and you drive it a lot, then they recommend replacing the timing belt every 100,000 kilometers or 60,000 miles. So just so you know, that's the other interval. You know, if you're cautious with your maintenance, I'd say, you know, 180 Ks, this is a good amount of time to change it. It's best to change things before they look worn and broken. That way you just keep on driving and, you know, it's done, and you have peace of mind.
You get another 10 years out of the vehicle. So,
well, exactly. That's right. But if it breaks, you know, then why be cheap? You know, this has already lasted a long time, and comparative to what timing belts used to be, this is double the length of what timing belts used to last, a decade or two earlier. So the technology's really come along.
I was just going to ask that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not as common of a job these days. How come?
Well, a lot of engines don't have timing belts anymore, and the ones that do, the intervals tend to be pretty long. You know, like in this Honda, like they're 160 to 200,000 kilometers, in length, which is a lot. It's a lot of driving time. It's many years worth of driving time. But also, a lot of manufacturers have got away from using timing belts. They've gone to timing chains. Chains don't have a set interval replacement, but one thing I will tell you is if you have a vehicle with a timing chain, change your oil regularly, change it more frequently, because good clean oil is critical for timing chains. You cannot mess around. I mean, with a timing belt, you've got a whole mechanism that's not lubricated, and it doesn't matter, quite so. You've got a bunch of other components that that aren't affected by your oil change, but timing chains are highly critical for oil changes. So bear that in mind. We're kind of drifting off the topic of timing belts, but as I say, a lot of manufacturers have gone to using chains. They're really more durable. They're meant, if you take care of it, to last the life of the engine. But some do fail, and when they do, they cost a lot more money than a timing belt to fix.
So how are Honda ridgelines? I don't even know if they make these anymore for reliability.
I'm not sure if they make them either. I mean, so the Ridgeline is similar. I mean, the engine in this is similar to a Honda Pilot, Accord, V6 model, Odyssey. They use it in a lot of engines. But anyways, the overall vehicle, excellent reliability. I mean, to me, Honda, Toyota, they're kind of like number one in my books. Not perfect vehicles. Stuff does go wrong, but they tend to be much more durable than most. And I highly recommend this vehicle. The owner of this vehicle, he bought it brand new. I mean, he's done very little on it, which is pretty amazing for a 13-year-old vehicle.